So, good afternoon very much, sir. This is Vinod here, and welcome to our show. And this particular show, we talk everything around cybersecurity. We talk about data privacy, data protection. We talk about governance, risk compliance. And usually the audience are scattered, right? When you say scattered, they are starting from students all the way to senior management or people who watch our videos. So having said that, first of all, thank you for accepting to be a part of this program. And before I get started, I'd like to quickly introduce Mr. Jasmine Amin. So Jasmine Amin is the founder and the CEO of Clear Consent, complete DPDPA-based organization. They're a product-based company, and they do offer services as well. They're neck deep into data privacy and data protection space. So he has close to around 25 years of cybersecurity experience, and specifically talking about data privacy, he is into this industry from 2016 onwards, right? So welcome you to the show, sir. So having said that, I would like to request you to do a quick introduction about you, so the rest of the audience gets to know a little about you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Vinod. Thank you for such a great opportunity to be participate and share my views. Let me introduce myself. My name is Jasmine Amin, and I am a founder and CEO of the Clear Consent Datasec Private Limited. I started this journey around 2023 September for the DPDPA perspective, when the act was very much new and nobody talks about the DPDPA in India. So before that, I first touched privacy in 2016 when I was into the part of the IAB Europe, one of the member and the vendor as a TCF community, which is a transparency and consent framework. So that was our first journey with the consent and all those things for the marketing activity. And now this DPDPA is a completely changed landscape in terms of the privacy globally. So when I say privacy globally, DPDP is not like something which we call it as a GDPR 2.0. It's some Indian Act. It's designed for India and applicable to India. Thank you. Thanks, Vinod.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, sir. Thanks for the quick, sharp introduction. Sir, so before we get started, maybe I'd like to understand. So since you said you got into this space from 2023 with your product-based company, right? So wanted to understand, since you saw this opportunity of DPDPA and then you started this, right? So how DPDPA is different from GDPR, having said the GDPR 2.0 Indian version or whatever, right? So how would you define it, sir? What do you see DPDPA doing to India?
See, when I started, what I did first thing, which normally any founder will do, trying to understand the competition and trying to identify the gaps, where we find that it's completely different act, not a single international product directly implemented for the DPDP implementation. That is number one. Why? Because this act is completely different. It starts with the consent. Consent is prime. In other act, consent is not prime. Here you cannot do anything without consent, specifically when we talk about the DPDPA perspective. Second thing is the different legitimate interest. We have hardly three legitimate interest, where GDPR is around a 5 legitimate interest. So that's another difference. We are taking parental consent and the nomination, which is another thing which we have into the DPDPA perspective. When we talk about the DPO requirement, it is not mandatory for the DPDPA India, right? So that is another difference. There is no audit requirement for the normal, you can say, compliance, except the data, significant data fiduciary, and the significant data fiduciary required a DPO, right? So there are many differences in terms of you can say comparing with the GDPR. And every law, if you talk about the any of the other laws like CCPA or the you can say PDPL or the Singapore law or the POPIA, which is coming into the South Africa, right? Uh, the concept, overall architecture is privacy is the same, but the implementation is different. Penalties are different. Looking the privacy perspective as a nation perspective is a different. So if I talk about the Indian Act, you have a relaxation in terms of the research and development. When you synthesize the data, when you use the synthetic data in terms of the AI model training, right? But how you derive that, that is equally important. If you are deriving and creating synthesized data from the actual data, then it's technically a incorrect approach, right? So there are a lot of you can say deep insight required when you implement the privacy. So making like in a you can say short form or the layman understanding, what mean by the privacy to me, right? Privacy is nothing but the hold on my personal data, right? I have a right to say no to anyone, person who are asking for my data, which is my name, my email, my phone number, my address, and I have also a right to ask the purpose to use that data. Right? That is what the DPDPA talk about. So, if you heard into this recent, you can say event, which is India AI Summit, our honorable Prime Ministers talk about the Manav concept. And while
Yeah.
talking about the Manav, he says one sentence, जिसका data उसका अधिकार, right? That is what the emphasizes, right? That is what the sovereignty of the India. So basically, the concept is the way data is handled in India, the practice of data sharing, which is the should have a control, and the person who are collecting the data, they should handle it responsibly. That is what the mean of the DPDPA, which is we call it is a Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Means it's a digital personal, right?
Got it. So often there is a misconception. People think data privacy is GDPR, data privacy is DPDPA. So what is the difference of this data protection versus data privacy?
See, data privacy is like every individual have its own privacy, right? Uh, Whenever we are entering into some office, CCTV is monitoring you. So that is your privacy infringement technically. But you have to visit that office, so you have to allow that. Why you are allowing that? Because you are going in that particular showroom or in that office for the particular purpose. And what is those purposes? That has to be mentioned before collecting those data. That is very simplified term of the privacy. When about the protection, how you are protecting that captured data within your organization. And that's where the cybersecurity and the data privacy, it's hand in hand. So when I say protection, so if I say example, if I take your Aadhaar card and putting into my system, tomorrow my system is breached due to any malware attack or any attack, and somebody is seeing my system as example, and he's also taking your Aadhaar card in his system, right? He cloned my system in simplest term. So now what happened at my level? It's technically a data breach because you are not aware that your data is stolen by the attacker, right? So it's my duty to inform you that, okay, hey Vinod, this attack has happened to my organization. Despite we were using antivirus, firewall, and lot of security measures, but uh, this has happened, right? So any attack can happen to any organization. Now, what measures which we have done is now we are enhancing our security measures. We won't allow certain kind of traffic on our websites. We won't allow certain downloads in our system, right? And that's how we ensure you to protect your data next time, right? Are you providing reuse the same
Got it.
data? Provide consent for that? You say yes, means again I am authorized to use data. If you say no, I am not able to use your data, and that is what is all about the DPDPA. It's in very simplistic terms. It's not just you can say something complicated which we need to understand. It's in within your routine life, right? We are going to the any restaurant, buying any movie ticket, buying
Yeah.
anything, right? I'll give you the simple example. You inquire for any insurance company or going with the policybazaar.com. Just you are viewing and
Mm.
searching for insurance and trying to get the premium amount, right? We're checking the various plan. But
Mm.
what happened after next? You will start getting the call within half an hour.
False.
And there are so many calls, not a one call, right? So which
Yeah.
irritates you. Now you have not given
Mm.
this permission to Policy Bazaar to send you those calls because they are not
Mm.
taking your permission right now. You are just surfing it.
Yeah.
They take it. Everything is granted. That is where the
Mm.
DPDPA comes into play. That they have to mention that whatever the
Mm.
data they are collecting, they use for that
Mm.
purpose only. If they have a purpose
Mm.
change, they again have to send you the notice and
Mm.
get the another consent on that.
Okay. So the purpose change, say there is a purpose change, and who is responsible to notify? Is there a recurring review of it done quarterly, half yearly to verify the consent? Or if there is a change, I am only responsible to update it.
See, I'll put it some different perspective. I'll give you the different example. You are giving your some belongings to someone, some person, right, to protect it. So that is his responsibility. So that is data fiduciary responsibility to protect the data. So if
Mm.
any breaches happen, he has to inform. Any
Mm.
purpose is changed, he has to inform.
Mm.
Because you are giving the right to use with the particular purpose only.
Purpose.
You are
Mm.
not giving the right to use it whenever and the whatever the way they want. Even they
Mm.
if they are sharing to the third parties, they have to mention in the consent notice that they are going to share with the third parties. And who are those third parties, right? Like
Mm.
Razorpay,
Mm.
they are your credit card detail or anything. So that has to be
Mm.
mentioned.
Mm.
And that is we
Mm.
call it the DPA agreement, which is a data processor agreement as a third party. So you
Got
need
it.
to identify
Okay.
the third party is a data processor or the data fiduciary, right? So I'll give you
Mm.
the another example. We are sending a data to print the visiting card, right?
Mm.
So that is every business have
Mm.
to do because they need to print the
Mm.
card. But end of the day, you are sharing your employee information to print the card,
Mm.
and that for that you also need
Correct.
to collect consent from your employee
Mm. Okay.
because employee, vendor, everything is for the business.
Mm.
For the act, the person is data principal.
Mm.
And the person who are collecting the data, they are data fiduciary. Very simple.
Great. 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 Okay. Got it. So, what are the key rights that users have under DPDPA, sir?
Very good question. So everyone should know their rights. So first of all, right to withdraw the consent. So once you give the consent, if purpose is over, you have a right to withdraw. Right.
Mm.
You can exercise your right whenever you want. That is a
Mm.
one thing. Second thing
Mm.
is right to ensure whatever the data
Mm.
holding by the company, it's correct or not. Right? If
Mm.
it is incorrect, you can send the correction request. So which is right to correct, which
Okay.
is right to ensure. Right to delete.
Mm.
If you are filing, you are applying for a loan with the 10 different companies, right?
Mm.
But only one company will give you the loan, 9 won't give
Mm.
you. So you can
Mm.
send them just to right to delete the data because they
Mm.
don't have any purpose now to hold those data,
Mm.
right? There is
Mm.
no
Mm.
legal bias involved. They are not processing your loan, right?
Mm.
So you can ask
Mm.
them to delete the data. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.
So that is
Mm.
what the right to delete. So we touch that part. Right to copy means you can ask
Okay.
for the copy of your data, whatever the data which they are holding in the system.
Okay.
And on top of it, you can file the grievances. So tomorrow you find that, okay, you give the data and you are getting a lot of calls from them. You can file the grievances that, okay, hey, I give you this data to just process my loan, not for the marketing calls. Stop that, otherwise I will go to the DPP board. Right.
Got it.
So that is the grievances which you are filing. In
Mm.
terms of the GDPR, they call it as a DSAR, data subject access request. In terms of
Okay.
DPDP, there is no logic of the DSAR. Okay, there is
Okay.
no structured format of the record of processing activity in DPDPA. Right, it's not
Okay.
mentioned anywhere into the act. So that is all you need to derive based on your based understanding. But you need to also make
Okay.
sure that you are protecting the data of the individual or the data principal. So another
Okay.
rights is right to nominate. You can nominate your right management to the other person, right? So when the person is
Okay.
not
So
capable
how
or
many rights, sir? Yeah,
all the
right to
rights,
withdraw, right to update, right to delete,
everything.
right to nominate,
When
and right
you
to.
yeah, so when you nominate, all the rights will be nominated.
Got it. Okay. So what would be classified as the valid consent, sir? So what would you say as a valid consent? Is there something where derived consent can also be applicable, where you don't explicitly call out the consent? Is there a case of derived consent or passive consent, or every consent has to be direct and called out?
See, when you talk about the DPDPA Rule 3, which is talking about the
Mhm.
consent part. So consent should be very simple, easy to understand, no ambiguity, should be in 10, 22 Indian languages. So person is able to read it its own comfort languages, right? You can't force like it's having English, so you have to read in English, right? So that has to be there. Notice has to be granular, means what purpose, what data element which you are capturing, right? So for example, if company is capturing email, so now email you can capture for the
Mhm.
OCP, email you can capture for the order
Mhm.
processing, email you can capture for the marketing, email you can capture
Mhm.
for the product update, right? Email you can
Mhm.
capture for the accounting activity, right?
Mhm.
Email you can capture for the getting the payment notification and
Mhm.
payment updates. These all are the purposes.
Great.
So one
Okay.
email have 10 purposes and you have to
Okay.
list 10 purposes to that show to the data principal.
Okay.
And whatever the purpose you click, you are only authorized to use that data for that particular
Mhm.
purpose.
That particular purpose only. Mhm.
That
Got
you
it.
need.
Excellent. So for the benefit of all, right? So what would be your simplest definition of a data fiduciary and data principal?
So when we talk about the simplest definition for the data fiduciary means the person or the organization who are collecting and processing the data of the data principal, which
Mhm.
have a valid consent.
Got it.
That is a data fiduciary.
Fiduciary.
Data principal who hold his personal data and allow businesses to use that data on the provided consent mechanism.
Got it. So can you please give me briefer about what clear consent does? What is the problem it solves? One. Number two is, okay, maybe I'll ask the second question after this. So what is clear consent doing? What is a problem it solves?
So objective is of the clear consent to be in this business is to help the businesses to comply for the DPDPA. So when I talk about DPDPA is having a three different triangles. One is technology, second one is privacy practices, and third one is the legal. So whenever you do the implementation, this three part is involved into the implementation activity. Now, problem with the any small and medium businesses is they cannot have all this expertise in one place. And where clear consent will help with this all these three expertise and help you to comply end to end. So we call it as a
Okay.
end-to-end compliance, right? So we will help you to protect from the 250 crore penalty. When I say protect means we provide the protection based on the implementation, right?
Okay.
But because the clear consent is complying with the all rules mentioned into the act as a product. So when you implement the clear consent product, okay, you are slowly, gradually complying for the DPDPA, right?
So say as an end user, I want to comply my company for DPDPA, right? So I reach out to you for using your product or using your service.
So basically, it's a combination of product and services. So
Okay.
how it will work? Just let me give the example. So it's very based on organization to organization. So what we will do is we provide you first of all taking the all the you can say responsible people who are responsible to implement the privacy within the organization. So when if you talk about the large organization, it's every department job. It's not a IT's job or it's not the CISO jobs or it's not the DPO job. It's a misconception, right? It's technically board is finally responsible. The owner of the business is finally responsible, right? So what we do is it's based on the organization. So say example, there's a small organization. We says, okay, you start with the data discovery. First of all, identify the data within your organization. And for that, we will provide you the tool, right? You implement the tool and start the data discovery activity, right? Once you are able to find the what the data you have, try to map with your business processes, right? What
Got it.
business processes you have. So say example, HR department of the organization. So who is the owner of those data collecting by the HR department, right? So the HR head or the departmental head is the owner of the collected data for that particular department. Now
Yeah.
that data is moving within the organization. So who is next authorized to use that data, which is the finance, to processing the salaries, to processing the benefits and all. So for that, the data is moving within the organization from HR to finance. Now those both the persons are now seeing the data, so both are now responsible. So wherever the responsibility, internal sharing is also there, right? So this person is giving the data to the next person. He has to make sure that the data should not be leaked by his department, right? And give the assurance internally to that particular department. But for the, you can say DPP board, which is a data protection board, it's a single organization. So if your one department is failing, still organization is failing.
Got it.
Right. So say example marketing, you are getting a data from the website and the marketing department start using it without checking the consent. Still it's an organization failure. So
Fail.
every employee needs a training for that about the privacy. And they need to also inherit the privacy within themselves because there are two different role of the person. He is the employee of the organization and he is also the data principal for the organization.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Got it. Say one quick question. So you spoke about the example, like say for example of the policy buzzer, right? And assuming your product, which is a consent management product, is used by policy buzzer, correct?
Okay.
So for an end user like me, right, I check policy buzzer for multiple insurance codes, right? So how would your product consent, clear consent, what will the role of that product be right now when it's used at, say, the level of policy buzzer or companies like that?
See, I'll give you the simple example of the you can say consent collection, right?
Mm.
Policy bazaar may be the too complex in certain aspects, but I'll give you the simple contractors form onto the any of the website, right?
Okay.
Where you are collecting the data.
Mm.
Even on the policy bazaar, say example, you are using the mobile app, they are collecting your mobile number,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Now they are not mentioning any purpose.
Mm.
When they are using my product, it
Mm.
will ask for the purposes to show onto that particular screen through our
Mm.
mobile SDK. So
Mm.
when you choose the purpose, they have to obey those purposes to use that particular data.
Mm.
So if they don't,
Mm.
I don't want any marketing call.
Mm.
You technically you are not supposed to get any call. But if
Mm.
you still get the call, means
Mm.
they are failing in the terms of the implementation.
When I
Where
subscribe for
product
do
is
not
having a no role.
disturb option, yeah, and still get do not I mean, once I have DND enabled and I still get the calls, that is the deviation.
That's organization responsibility, right?
Yeah,
Clear consent has collected the consent and submitted to the you can say system, right?
correct.
Now if the employee is not understanding privacy and is still calling, that's
Mm.
organization problem. That's not clear consent
Yes,
problem.
yes, got it. And number two, sir, say there is a end user who withdraws the consent from the consent manager, right? What technically happens?
See, consent manager is again a different role you are talking about, right? I'll
Mhm.
come to that part later. But when you
Mhm.
talk about the withdrawing the consent, so every
Mm.
business, so for the again coming back to Policy Bazaar, they have to provide you the portal where you can go and exercise your right, which we call it
Mm.
as a data principal right management portal, right?
Got it,
And
sir.
that is
Mm.
different for every business, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
because they are holding your consent, so it's
Mm.
not a common pool right now.
Got
So
it.
consent manager is a different role altogether. So when
Okay.
when you ask for the withdrawal, you are going to the
Mhm.
system, logging to the
Mm.
portal with your
Okay.
credentials, and then you are withdrawing the consent, and the system will show this consent is withdrawn.
Got it. Okay. So, say I as a company, I want to get started because of this timeline that the Indian government has put in, right? So, can we just talk briefly on the timelines that the government has put in the DPDPA timelines?
So when we talk about the timeline, the final rule published on to the 13th November 2025. After that, they have given the date of the publishing rule. They have given the 18 months of timeline, right?
Right.
The
Right.
May 2027, they are going to
Mhm.
enforce the penalties.
Okay.
Now, implementation timeline is already started.
Mm.
So now, technically, when we are doing this podcast, we have a 13 months in our
Time
hand.
period. Got it.
Very precisely, 12.5 months, right? Not even
Got it.
13 months.
Okay.
So
Mm.
in 12.5 months, you need to do the implementation. You need to do the collect the consent and send the notices to the existing customers, right? So you should have a
Mm.
consented data till you can say in May 2027. So
Mm.
after May
Mm.
2027, if you are not complied with the DPDPA and the penalty is enforced, you are not able to
Mm.
connect any single data point from the any of the individuals.
Mm. Got it. Say, considering 2027 May is the line, right? Say
Yeah.
a company of size, say 150 employees, right? They want to get started with the DPDP and they want to finish before 2027 May, right? So, what would be the typical timeline for DPDPA implementation?
See, we call it as a 6 to 8 months for the any size of the organization. The reason is first of all, they need to understand the privacy, right?
Mm.
Because privacy achieved within the organization, right? As a third party, we
Mm.
help them implement, we provide them a tool, but end of the day, they have to run the tool. We audit it, we
Correct.
help them to monitor it, we help them to monitor the compliance also. Everything will do, right?
Mm.
But end of the day, they are the user, they have to implement within. So how much time they will take for the adoption? That is number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? What the
Mm-hmm.
size of the organization is, how many employer needs to be have a training on this, right? Whether they
Mm.
need to the implementing capability within the organization for their future acquisitions or not. That is also the part
Mm-hmm.
of it, right? So it's completely vary what kind of a tech they are using. Okay, so minimum timeline you need to consider. Even its size is not in this case matter. The process, because everything
Okay.
is process oriented.
Process.
You have to also
Okay.
change your employee agreement. You have to create a DPA agreement with the vendors. You need to create an NDA with the
Mm.
vendors, right? So a lot of legal
Mm.
formalities are there. You cannot change your
Mm.
employee agreement overnight, right? You have to inform them. You need to
Mm.
educate them. So a lot of activity. It's not
Yeah.
like that. Okay, you say okay
Okay.
tomorrow
So
I
typically,
get this. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So typically, can I consider it should be around 6 to 8 months, irrespective of the size of the organization. Say if
Yes.
20 member or 200 members, it's going to be the same, right?
See,
Okay.
20
And
members, I can
s-
say it be little bit lesser. It could be 3 to 4 months because their processes are very limited, right? Or the products are
straightforward.
limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it won't
Got
take
it.
that much time.
Okay. And next question is, in this period of say 6 months, right? What would be the stages that would be covered as a part of this DPDP implementation? What all do we start with?
So, what we prefer is to start with the data identification and the discovery. This is our own framework, which we call it as a clear consent uh, CPIF, which is Clear Consent Privacy Implementation Framework. So, we
Mhm.
start with the identification and the mapping of the data. Now we talk about the mapping where your data is lying, whether it's on cloud,
Mhm.
on your individual system,
Mhm.
it's on server, it's on your OneDrive, it's on your Google Drive, it's on your pen drive, it's on your external
Mhm.
hard drive, right? These are the spaces where data is
Mhm.
there. Uh, if you are
Mhm.
having a backups, there is also the data because most of the
Mhm.
time people forget to, you can say, remove the backup. Because
Mhm.
backup is used when you have a crash, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
backups is also well important. Your DR site, which is your disaster recovery mechanism,
Legally. Mhm.
is active or active passive, right? That is also the
Mhm.
part of the consideration into the mapping.
Mhm.
And then you have to, once
Mhm.
you do the, you need to do the classification of those data, like which is a
Mhm.
PII, PFI, PHI, sensitive
Mhm.
PII, non-sensitive
Mhm.
PII. Once you
Got it.
do all the classification, then you need to map with the purpose and the third party at the element level.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'll give you the very good example with the bank.
Mhm.
So bank is having a different product called credit card or the home loan or the vehicle loan or whatever the product they have, right? Bank account, lot of products.
Mhm.
So all the products
Mhm.
are collecting a different data points, right? And
Mhm.
the purpose are different. So when you say credit card, so credit card they are sending
Different.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
printing. So they are sharing the data to the credit card printers also. Maybe there are very few data points, but still they are
Mhm.
sharing it, right? So those
Mhm.
data points also needs to be captured into the notice that okay we are
Mhm.
sharing to this parties for these purposes, right? And that's how this
Mhm.
notice.
Mhm.
So notice designing is a time taking process, and that also
Mhm.
has to be approved in the legal perspective. So tomorrow it won't be
Got it.
happen that say anything to the you can say user, and tomorrow he
Mhm.
complain and the purpose which you are using it's not mentioned into the notice, right?
Mhm. Got it.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
so that is a part of it.
Mhm.
So what was your original question?
The
Uh,
stages of the six
Yeah.
months, what all
So stage, yeah.
stages? Yeah.
So the once the identification is done, we
Mhm.
suggest to provide the training, right, which is the first
Mhm.
level of training, and then we go for the you can say this business process activity mapping, Once we map with the business process activity, then we do this DPIA, which is a impact assessment, data processing impact assessment. So what if the processes you find, what is the impact of the risk for the data privacy perspective? And once it is done, we move towards the consent part, which is a very large part. We need to create the notice and the notice, collect the consents, right? It's a activity in itself. And
Okay.
once you move forward with that, then we provide the governance portal where you can monitor everything within the organization. It required to integrate with your websites and SDK, which is under the white label perspective, because everyone use every web brand is having a different color themes and everything. So that you have to integrate. Otherwise, user will confuse if he sees something coming up from the third party. So it has to be inherent integration. And
Got it.
then, so all this training is required. How you handle this request, right? If users send withdrawal, how you internally handle it. So you need to create the policies and SOPs for that. And what are those example? There's a consent management policy. There's a breach management policy, right? There's a data handling policy within the organization. So all those policies which we need to create, technically there are 15 policies, 14 SOPs which we have built up as a pack, which we
Okay.
give the business as to where to start, because business are not clear where to start even they are writing the policies. So those things we help to businesses to do the compliance. And once everything is done, then the final training and the if organization look for the any third party audit, we help them to conduct that also. Because right now audit mechanism is not there, so we are in process to define the controls for this and for the audit perspective. And then you are technically certified for the DPDP if you have everything is in place. But it does not mean that you won't get the 250 crore notice, right? Or you won't get any notice, because notice is a different process in itself. So when somebody complain to the board, or there are multiple complaints for the same organization to the board, board will ask you to produce evidences. And that's
Okay.
where clear consent is having a age, because we are an evidence
Got it.
system. We record everything which
Great.
is happening within this entire process. And the another misconception people have is that we can create the evidences. This is not possible. Today I'm talking with you, I'm collecting your consent, right? I cannot collect this same consent after 1 year. It
Yeah,
cannot be
it's
possible.
timestamped.
Yes. So every consent is having a fingerprint. And every consent, once you collect, you need to inform to the data principal. This is the what we have collected through mail. Right. So there are a lot of things which is you can say small pieces which people are missing it up, and it's a large process, large activity. That's the reason we created 7 different module. Internal module are more than 15, but we for the ease of the you can say user perspective, we keep it as a 7 module product. And
What are those 7 modules, sir?
so that is start from the data discovery, then classification and mapping is another one. And then we have a business process activity, data lineage and data, you can say flow diagram, DFD we call it, how the data is moving in your organization in terms of the PI. And then the consent management, so managing the consent. So how you are collecting it, what are the sources, what language you are collecting it, when you have collected it, what devices. It's huge. Consent management is a huge
Okay.
product. And then data principal right management portal, and then governance and the policy generate. You can keep the generate the policies and also do the mapping with the policies moving forward, which organization, which person have signed which policies. That is another headache, right? Because you have a 15
Got
policies,
it.
so you need to have a track of it. And so third party management, vendor register, right? Who are the vendor, what is the risk level with the vendor, what data we are sharing to that particular vendor. Everything is covered in our product. So it's a complete end to end. call it as compliance is provable.
Okay.
We provide the provable compliance.
Got it. So next question is talking a little about breach notification, right? So I notice usually when a company gets hacked, gets breached, right? The first thing is they don't want to publicize it. They don't want to let the world know that they've got hacked, correct? Their data has got exfiltrated. But here in DPDPA, I notice that breach notification is a mandate, correct?
Okay.
So can you just share some light around it, sir? So can you shed some insights?
So see, breach notification means what? So first of all, you need to understand whether you are working with the regulated industry or the normal industry. So if I talk about the BFSI, they have their law which they need to mandatory comply, which is RBI, right? Which is they have to comply with the RBI laws. Now that is their you can say first law they need to comply. Then the next is the DPDP. So when we talk about any breach happen to any bank, they have to first inform to 13, right? Within the 7 hour deadline. And then they have to inform to the DPDPA board within 72 hours. But that breach notification means if single data is breached, still you need to notify to the board because data principal is impacted and you are not aware that what is the consequences faced by those data principal. Right? So any fraud happen in his account, 2 crore is wiped off from the individual. It's a huge impact, right? And bank is responsible for that particular breach. So breach size is not in terms of the single data or 10,000 data or one data, right? It breach is breach, and you have
Breach
to
is
report.
the breach, yeah.
Whether it's an internal breach also, right? And there are a lot of you can say tools and technologies nowadays available to protect your data in terms of you can implement IAM tools, spam tools, script recording. A lot of things are available nowadays. So you need to tie those tools and then you need to implement it. So we advise for that also in our process for the gap analysis in terms of the security perspective, cyber security perspective. So gap analysis going hands in hands. It's not a separate activity we considered because we believe that it's our own opinion. We are not like contradicting with anyone, but it's our own opinion that gap analysis should be the part of the process. It should not be the individual activity or the separate activity where you do entire gap analysis and then you wait for the
Correct, absolutely.
right? Yeah, so because there is always the gap. This act is completely new, so you can't say there is no gap, right? So there's a gap, and that's the reason we are implementing this entire solution. So that is completely my personal view. I'm not, you can say, any offense or any contradictory view of any of the organization which they are conducting gap analysis. That's their own choice.
Absolutely.
Right? But we believe to save
I get
the
that,
time, and that's the reason we put it hand in hand.
as a part of the process.
Yeah, so it's my disclaimer.
And I also believe, yeah. And also, sir, when a third party does a gap analysis, they may not have the full knowledge of the product or the process. When you have the gap analysis as a part of your process, I think there is a better, chances of it to be fixed.
See, the logic when you talk about this gap analysis perspective, uh, I put it that people feel that it's a checkbox activity. We do the gap analysis, we are done with DPDPA. No, you have you have not done anything unless you have a proper system in a place.
Correct.
Gap analysis, you tomorrow, I'll just give you the example. Tomorrow, DPP board will ask to some of the organization and they say and go to the board and say, sir, we have done the great gap analysis. We have a report with us. Right? They says, no, we need evidence. Have you collected the consent? What purpose you have used the data? Right? Are you authorized to use the data, first of all? And how you prove your authority to use the data? That's only the mechanism is the consent. And this mechanism is not available across the globe. So India is going lead into the privacy place globally, right? It's every country is going to implement this in future if this is the grand success in India, right? So
Makes sense.
this is the different model in itself. And
Mm.
that's where I firmly say that no international product is able to implement directly. They
Yeah,
have to do
got that.
huge changes in their architecture, and then only they
Mm.
are able to implement it, right? And that's the
Mm.
reason we build a tailored product.
Mm.
There's no other purpose to reinvent the vehicle, but
Mm.
the only purpose is this vehicle is completely different. So make in
Different,
India,
different.
design for India.
Lovely. And sir, another question is, say, at this point in time, you are presenting as a OEM, clear consent with the product and the service, right? Assume you are a CISO of an organization, okay? And now you have a requirement from a CEO to get started with the DPDP agenda. What would be your steps?
See, as a CISO or the DPO, whatever the role, because here role is not important. Who is taking, like, there could be I have seen the program director for the DPDPA, right? And the problem with any of the law, which I would like to tell you, everyone interpret by its own,
Mm.
right? So law, if I give you the paper of the act,
Mm.
you interpret by your own, right? So
Mm. Mm.
that's a biggest catch. So
Correct.
first of all, the activity, if I am a CISO, I start with the data identification
Mm.
because I
Mm.
understand the privacy as a CISO, right?
Mm.
As a
Mm.
DPO also, I understand the privacy. But if you
Mm.
give to the IT manager, he may not understand the
Mm.
privacy,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
right? And for that, who is
Mm.
responsible? The owner is responsible.
Mm. Mm.
So
Mm.
either owner has to understand the privacy and do the
Mm.
activity. As a CISO, my first job is to do the data identification, nothing else. Where the data is
Correct.
lying and what the size of the data
Classified.
is. Then the classification and the mapping. That is the next part. First of all, you should know where the data is,
Absolutely. True. True.
right?
Very true.
So
Yeah.
data is it's like a plastic for you, to be honest,
Mm. Mm.
right? It's carrying now responsibilities. Data is not free. More
Mm.
the data, more risk you have. And that's the reason there's a
Mm.
concept called data minimization in the act. Collect the
Mm.
data which you needs it. Don't collect the
Mm.
data which you don't need it. And who will decide that?
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Either CISO, either DPO, or the owner based on the size of the organization. And that's where I see is
Mm.
the biggest, you can say, complications or the, you can say, misunderstanding is how you implement with the different size of the organization. Because end of the day, somebody has
Mm.
to be
Mm.
decision maker for the privacy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And for that, we suggest to hire the CPO, which is the Chief Privacy Officer. Okay, if your organization is a little bit
Mm.
larger, as you mentioned, 150 people, you need a one kind of a virtual CPO or the in-house CPO because you are going to get a lot of requests. Who will manage it?
Correct. Yeah.
Right? CISO is also not able to manage those requests.
Mm.
And DPO is having other tasks to do. So who
True.
will manage it? So
True.
it's creating a
True.
huge opportunity for the people, right? It's going to generate huge employment for India. And we are working for that as a clear consent academy, where we are coming up with
Mm-hmm.
our training and certification programs.
Okay.
Right? The
That's
people who
excellent.
are into
Yeah.
the security, they have an opportunity to be part of the privacy moving forward. And for that, we are
Mm.
coming up with the program soon. So what I'm into say is capability building is another challenge because there are a lot of, it's not
Mm.
like everybody is aware. I am
Mm.
in day in, day out, I am talking with a lot of people. And when I talk about the DPDPA, they say, what is that? Right? So
Mm.
first
Mm.
of all, I
Mm.
need to educate him as a data principal. And then I talk
Mm.
about the fiduciary. So first of all,
Okay.
privacy is the future. Privacy
Mm,
must required. Why?
mm,
Because many kind of crime happen due to the privacy leak. It's not just a
mm,
financial crime, right?
mm, mm,
Nowadays, we
mm.
are into the age of AI. People are
Yeah.
losing jobs. People are having a fear of losing the job, and AI is
True.
doing a
Very true.
wonderful thing, right? It's
Yeah.
it's cutting the resource. It's cutting the time also. It's improving the
Mm,
quality. So where the
mm.
privacy space, you can't play with the AI. You need
True.
humans.
Humans. Yeah.
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 So here the AI is cutting the
For
job.
sure.
Privacy is creating the job.
Yeah. Jobs. Yeah, very true. And what are the tools to choose in this space? Maybe you can give some high level
If you talk
inputs.
about me, I say clear consent. But
Absolutely.
put it apart from that, how you choose, right? So what should be the pattern to choose, right? Rather than
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah.
so I would like to answer that way rather than giving you
Yeah.
the biased opinion for my tool, to be honest with you. So,
Okay.
what tool should we choose in terms of it should be capable to capture all the PIA data from your
Mm,
system, right? So, deep understanding of the domain is required from the organization who are selling the tool. That is number one. They should
when you
also
say
understand.
PIA, personal identifiable information, what all does it cover apart from name, email, phone number, passport number,
Everything,
and
Aadhaar
what
card, PAN
else is?
card, yes, even your medical reports, right? That is a
Okay.
PFI, this PHI data, personal health information,
Okay.
personal financial information,
Okay.
your IFSC, bank account, your credit card,
Okay.
lot of things,
Got it.
right? So it has to be,
Okay.
first of all, capture that. Then it has to be very
Mm-hmm.
good classification mechanism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it should learn by time. It should have an immutable record. It should be data blind. It should be highly secured.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is required because tomorrow system is not logging the activity. So somebody do the
Mm-hmm.
changes. Who is responsible? Tomorrow you have a
Correct.
notice version 1 with you and somebody is changing to notice version 2
Mm-hmm.
and that data is deleted from the log. Who is responsible? Organization, not the
True.
employee.
True.
So 250 crore penalties for the board and for the owners.
Mm.
Right? Whatever the size
Okay.
you have, whatever the
Yeah,
size of the
maybe
organization you
we'll
have.
touch a little upon the penalties. Can you brief me what kind of penalties exist? Because 250 crores sound way too big. Does it even apply for small companies? The company's revenue itself may not be half of it. In that case, what happens?
See, technically speaking, it's 100% of your revenue risk unless you are more than 250 crore, right?
Mm, true,
Logically
true.
speaking.
Yeah.
Uh, See, the logic behind that is if there is a serious crime happen to any of the data principal and
Mm,
which is the consequences, whether you are a small business or the large business, that
mm.
person suffers.
True,
Who is responsible for it? The
true.
organization who need the data,
Mm.
right? Who is not capable to handle the data. Now,
Got it.
how much penalty will be charged? I'm not the
Mm,
board, right?
mm,
But what Act is saying that I would like to throw the light on that. For
mm,
non-compliance, if you are saying, sir, we have done gap analysis, you are non-compliant,
mm. Okay.
right? You don't have a consent mechanism, you are non-compliant, right?
Mhm,
Unless that is happen, you are compliant, okay?
mhm,
You have something to say to the board. If you are
mm,
non-compliant, direct penalty 50 crore, right?
mm.
So
And
if you are
what
non-compliant,
if,
means, yeah, yes,
yeah, sorry,
please.
sir. So there are so many companies who are not even knowing about DPDP and their very requirement to get themselves DPDPA compliant by May 2027. Say June 2027, right? Are these companies liable for some kind of a penalization already because they have not started DPDPA?
See, they are, if you are not following the DPDPA, right, you are non-compliant. Now, you don't know where this risk is triggered, right?
Mm.
So you
Yeah.
says I am a small company, I have a 10
Mm.
employee, okay, who will fine me 50 crore? I don't have a 50 crore to pay off, okay? And
Mm.
I clearly mentioned that I am not a board. I am not a decision maker who
Mm.
can give you what are going to be the decision happen. But it may possible,
Mm.
board will tell you, okay, you are
Mm.
not complying,
Correct.
serious consequences happen, okay, close
Mm.
down your business.
Mm.
We get back your all licenses, your GST,
Mm.
everything will take it back. Everything is cancelled. It
Mm.
may, I'm not saying it is going to, right? So
Mm.
I'm,
Mm.
who is the person, how board is taking that consequences and what decision they are going to take, that's a board discretion, right? But anything
Mm.
happen to the
Mm.
business, right?
Mm.
You may have to pay 5 crore penalty. You may have to pay 1 crore penalty.
Mm.
So what act is saying, this is the penalty which is there. So if you say there is a child, you can say breach, child data breach, which is under 18 people who are the, you can say, having the minors data, right?
Mm.
You take the example of the schools, okay?
Mm.
So I'll give you the example which is technically realistic. Why?
Mm.
Because when child is studying in the school, his data is exposed to only with the school, not other
Mm.
spaces. Uh,
Yeah.
if they are onto the social media, now parental consent is required. So parent is aware that they
Mm.
are on social media. Okay.
Mm.
So problem occurs when that child data is leaked and some crime happened
Mm.
to that child. Who is responsible? School. Now you
Mm.
say how school should be penalized? Of course, with the penalty,
Mm.
right? So they have to
Mm.
showcase that how they are protecting that data, but because victim is there, they already suffered for the consequences by leaking the data.
Mm. Mm.
And that's the reason data fiduciary is responsible for this. So they are going to be
Got it.
penalized.
Mm.
See,
Mm.
the
Mm.
board will take any decision. See,
Mm.
if you take the base example of the GDPR, right? What
Mm.
happened to people who have not followed the GDPR? What
Mm.
are the MNCs? How much penalty they have paid till now, right?
Mm.
And they have paid. So there is
Mm.
no choice. You can't say, okay, I have a 2,000 crore business and I am not going to pay 250 crore. No, you have to pay.
Mm.
In HIPAA Act
Correct.
compliance also, globally, few companies are closed also due to they are not able to pay the penalty for the HIPAA.
Mm.
So this is a very serious compliance and everybody have to take it very seriously. Right? Another thing, which is
Mm.
a very fair point, which I would like to tell you, the tools which you are talking about, the choose, right? You need to ask those company, are you compliant with the DPDPA? As a clear consent, we are compliant from day one itself. We are collecting the consent on our
Mm.
site,
Mm.
right? And it's not like that you
Mm.
need to do be perfectionist from the day one, but you should have a system in
Mm.
place.
Please, yeah.
Right? Whatever
Got.
the best understanding you have, you are collecting the consent with the purposes. Tomorrow you
Mm.
fine tune
Mm.
your purposes, but you should have that. So
Mm.
when any complaints happen, board will look after what measures you have taken. Right?
Exactly. Mm.
You are completely ignoring the act or you are following the act.
Mm.
And based on that, your board will decide how they need to penalize or not penalize or make you free. That's board
That's
discretion.
That is their score. Yeah. Got it.
But we have to provide the evidence what we have done.
Absolutely, sir.
So this is the
So,
evidence law. This is the operational law. This is not a
you got it.
checkbox law.
Yeah. And typically, if there is some kind of issue that arises from there, it may blow up big.
Of course.
Yeah.
So see, it's what board will take it, how board will take it. I am not sure, but I am just giving you the logical reasoning, right? This could
Correct.
be happen because the victim
Yeah.
can be anything. Nowadays, it's not just
Mm.
only the financial fraud. There are a lot of crimes happening due to the data leak.
Mm. Mm. Correct. Very true.
So this has to be in control, and that's the reason. So you are actually securing your child futures by implementing a privacy.
True.
Today, your data is exposed.
Mm.
You are everywhere, right? But what about your
Mm.
child
Mm.
who are nowhere in the internet?
Mm.
So that you have
True.
to think. And next 5 years, 10 years down the line, when the person who are going to get the maturity after 18, he is protected from day one. He can choose to whom to share his data. And they will
Mm.
share the data those people who just believe in good security and good privacy practices. So it's a
Correct.
competitive edge also.
Mm.
It's not just your
And
business
every
expense.
third party and the vendors would already know that this company handles data securely. It gives a kind of a confidence.
Correct. So it is a reputational exercise. It will build your reputation. It will build your business also. Because you do
Yeah.
the business with
Got
the
it.
people who take care about your data, not with the people who ignore your data.
Mm. Absolutely. So once again, sir, it was a really very insightful discussion. But before we close, is there any closing remarks from your end? Is there any two pointers that you'd like to tell to the audience who are watching this?
So my honestly speaking, the remarks or the pointers is uh, I would like to urge to the audience, take this law seriously. It's not a just checkbox. It's an operational activity. Clock is ticking, and it is going to take its own time to implement. So please be wake up and act on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir. So it was such a wonderful session, and I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of learning, and I'm hoping that everyone who watched this also had something to learn back from this session. And we are quite keen on our next episode to look at your tool, the options it has, and maybe a walkthrough about your tool would be great as well. So we're really looking forward for that as well, sir. So once again, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Looking forward in connecting again.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you. Thanks,
you.
Vinod, for such a great opportunity
Thank you, sir.
and help me to express my view to the audience. Really thankful to you for such organizing such a good podcast, and looking forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure, sir. I'll keep you informed, sir. Thank you very much.